Eagerheads Jeff with Gear Report. Uh, Kind of a spontaneous going live tonight to uh, partially out of just being cooped up all day and all weekend and wanting to chat with some people. And also there were some interesting things that happen around the country, in the news that impact what we do here. We're all about the gear that we use for outdoor activities, and some of those are getting harder to do based on restrictions that federal, state, local government have put in place. And I thought, you know what, why don't we talk about some of those things and the impacts it has on us for the short term, and any thoughts on, what the long-term implications might be. And so far, Trey at Ghost Tacticals joined us. Welcome, Trey.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, thanks for popping in. You never know what you're going to get when you send out an invitation, an hour,
Right.
hour and a half before showtime. But I appreciate you swinging
I have
by.
no
And
life, so I'm good.
yeah, well, it's kind of what I count on when I send out those late invitations is, I'm not the only one that has no life and is available for this kind of thing. So, this actually came out of a discussion. TJ called me earlier. He was, I think, struggling a bit with the isolation, and he said, "Yeah, I've been calling people all day." I said, "Dude, why don't we do this later? You can join the call. Join the stream. We'll talk about some of the things we were talking about." And he's not here right now, so we'll see if he shows up. Um, he was going to try to get a microphone or anything. Can
I
you
got you.
tell me how this sounds? I know when we did this on Wednesday, everyone's like, "No, you sound fine." But then I listened to the replay, and it sounded really kind of poor quality. Does it sound decent
Um,
this time?
Last week you sounded fine. The volume was a little bit low, but you
Hmm.
sounded fine. Today it
Okay.
sounds great. So much better. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. Appreciate that. I'm still playing with there to figure out what's going to work best for the live streaming. But
Yeah. You're going to
so
be working
let's
on
see.
that for
While
for a year. I promise you. I change it up all the time. You know.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that in some of Clover's nerd chats, where we're talking about the kind of technology behind what we do, where you've talked about some of the tools you use to manipulate your audio.
Yeah.
That, like, you have an equalizer you use to make it
Hmm.
sound better. That's something I need to do. I need to sound more bassy, whatever. It doesn't work when I try to do it. It just sounds weird. But
You've
yours
already got
always
a
sounds
pretty
pretty
deep
clean.
voice, so it does help. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, people out there, let me I got to remember to bring comments up here so I can see. If you're out there watching, let us know you're there. We can see that there are people, but we can't, we don't know who it is, and unless you say something. So let us know, and let us know if you have any questions or thoughts or anything you wanted to talk about. So far, I know TJ mentioned, you know what? Maybe we'll leave that and see if he shows up to talk about it, because he knows more than I do. But some legislation that it appears folks are trying to pass through that's going to have some Second Amendment type implications in the long term, and this would be federal legislation, HR something. I don't remember what it was, but
Fifty
maybe
seventeen
we
or
can
something,
talk about
52
that at some
17 or
point.
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Are you familiar with that one?
A little bit. I've done a little bit of reading on it, and if it goes through, it's. I don't think it'll go through. I don't think you got to. It might pass the House just because it's a House bill, but I don't think you'll even get out of committee at the Senate level. But
Hmm.
if it for some reason does, it's not good. I mean, it's obviously gun control at its finest. The way they worded things, just they're just trying to word things differently. But I think people kind of know what it
Right.
is. It's gun control.
Got it. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe TJ will be here. He had been debating with someone on this today and had a little bit more information. So if he shows up, we can dig into that a little bit more. What are you seeing in your area of Arkansas about restrictions? You know, Gear Report's all about getting outside and the gear that we use to do different activities outside. Are you still allowed to do everything there, or are you, have
Yeah,
they, like,
you
your main
know,
profession, has that been impacted?
most definitely had to lay off 36 people last week for a month, and all
Yikes.
basically
Yeah.
non-essential hourly employees are laid off for a month. And
Yeah.
we've at the restaurant, at the club, we've had to close down. The governor came out last week, and basically restaurants are not allowed to be open in the dining facilities. So
Right.
they're doing a lot of pickups to go orders, and then like what we're doing at our club also is pickup orders to go, but we're also delivering now. So people do have that option. But as far as restrictions for outdoor stuff and two-way stuff, no, not so much. I mean, we are the natural state, and it's what we have a lot of lakes, a lot of hills. People hike and climb and camp out and all that. And as a matter of fact, I know a buddy of mine works for what do you call it? The Corps of Engineers, and he
Hmm.
does on the weekends. He works as a park ranger. We have several, probably 5 or 6 park areas that people camp out at throughout the year. And I've noticed that spring break is happening, and for us in Arkansas, our schools are shut down to April 15th. So people are trying to find something to do. And I've noticed, I don't know about there in Carolina where you are, but people are going to camp out. They're
Yeah.
fishing, they're doing stuff like that. So I think the outdoors life is actually probably seeing a little bit of an upspike here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to hear. So for the people who don't know, your day job we were talking about is a golf pro at a golf course, right?
Yeah, we're a resort here in North Central Arkansas. Yeah, got a
Right.
hotel, restaurant, golf course, all that good stuff.
Right. So, is the golf course closed? Is it open?
Well, we're open officially right now. It's closed because we've had 8 inches of rain the last week, so it's just
Right.
way too wet. But it is open. We've had a lot of tournaments and corporate functions and outings have been canceled or postponed to later in the year. Basically, the only people to be playing will be our members that live here
Right.
that would play whenever they can. But we're not closed, but we don't have anyone staying. Like, it was really weird last week or so was the spring break for Tennessee, at least the Memphis area. We have a large influx of people that come here from Memphis, and we didn't have anybody at the hotel. And usually it's full. And it was really,
Right.
really kind of eerie to see an empty parking lot during a spring break in Memphis. So it was odd.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it. Uh, hey, Toby, looks like he's watching. You're welcome to jump on and chat with us if you like, Toby.
What's up, Toby?
Um, yeah, interesting. I know I went sailing this weekend,
Hmm.
and the lake that I went to has a golf course right up on the edge of it. And I see people out, as we're tooling
Yeah.
around the lake very long because they've implemented some reduced hours, and they said it is
Yes.
to limit the interaction that people will have. But to me,
Hmm.
like, out on the water on the lake on a sunny day, that's about the safest place you could be with a virus going around. Because the only person is going to be, folks who you brought out there with you, which in my case was someone old. Hey,
Right.
how are
Well,
you?
we've kind of done the same thing at the golf course. We're usually open
What's
seven
up?
days a week, but we're closing right now the next month or so, Mondays and Tuesdays, and then throughout the rest of the week we're only open from 9 to 4 in the golf shop. So we have obviously cut back. I've had to
Right.
cut back my crew. I was able to keep my entire crew for the golf course that maintain the grass and all of that stuff. But I had to cut the hourly people. I had to cut them back to 20 hours a week instead of getting their normal 40. So there's going to be obviously. I heard our governor today came on and gave a speech, and from now until June 30th, which is the end of the state's fiscal year, they're expecting a $350 million change in revenue because of business being shut down and all that. So, in a small state as far as population wise, a $350 million decrease in revenue is something not to laugh about.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, Toby jumped in while we were talking. So welcome, Toby.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing tonight?
I don't know who you're talking to, but thank you for the gentleman. That's surprising.
I was talking to the guy right over there. Not
that makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
just off camera left, stage left. So
yeah, I was thrown by that also.
Sorry, that was my corporate America speech. That my BS meter was rising high there. Sorry. So
yeah. So did you hear what we're discussing this evening?
Yeah. I had my son was over and we were watching a movie, and I kind of got jumped in late there, but I caught some of the topic where you're discussing was it 5071 proposed regulation law, and then you were discussing how some of the COVID-19 is affecting financial situations in the different states.
Yeah. So as far as the proposed legislation, TJ had wanted to talk about that, so I'm kind of stalling on that to see if he is going to be able to join us, because he and I talked a couple hours ago, and he wanted to discuss that. So it sounds like you probably know more about it than I do. So hopefully he'll show up and we can dig into that a little bit more, because it sounds pretty nefarious so far. But right now we're kind of talking about what impact outdoor activities are seeing in each of our areas, based on what's going on with the virus going around. So what are you seeing in your area? Are people still allowed to get out and do pretty much what they want outside, or are they locking people down or what?
Yeah, I wouldn't say as much as they want. No, so I'm seeing some interesting things going on in our area. So we live near a national park, and we live in the foothills of the mountains. So I mean, I'm still seeing, some outdoor traffic, people, going up and down the road with RVs, hitting out and camping, hitting the woods, hitting nature, that kind of thing. But as far as like in town, we're just like every other town. We have all of the restaurants are closed for carry out only, or you can walk in and get your food and walk back out. We're seeing an extremely increased police presence at all the different at all the different standard hangouts where you see kids congregating in large groups. You're seeing larger presences of law enforcement, keeping those down to a minimum. Gas prices are down to like $1.60 a gallon. It's insane,
right?
Because
that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to benefit off of everybody's suffering, but I'm not going to say I didn't fill up a couple of 5-gallon gas cans. Just saying, Now, if I had a good solid 55-gallon drum, maybe. I'm just, But it's definitely affecting the area for sure.
So the national parks that you're near are, to your knowledge, is it still operating normal hours, normal capacity? Have they dialed back any there?
I have not seen or heard anything to the adverse. I mean, I might could Google it real quick and see, but
yeah. But you're not feeling the impacts of that yet, it sounds like. So
no.
I know just the vibe, what I'm getting off of the internet, Facebook today, is that over the weekend people saw a big uptick. But the typical outdoors people, so I'm in a variety of different hiking and backpacking and outdoor oriented groups on Facebook, and the theme seems to be now, we can't wait for this to be over, so all the other people will go home and leave us alone, that we're being overrun. All these people, they've been cooped up for a whole week, and now they're getting out and they're invading our space. So I'd like to have a little more welcoming message for the people. If you're a city slicker and you're not used to being outside doing stuff in the woods, if you're headed out to a national park or a state park or a local park or whatever, I would welcome everyone, hey, get out there and see why some of the rest of us spend a lot of time out there. I mean, it can be a neat experience to get out there in the fresh air and the sunlight. But if you're going to do that while you're out there, please leave your bad city manners in the city. Don't throw your trash on the ground. Don't pick up stuff and take it with you. Be respectful of the environment out there, and keep your social distancing. So, which in itself, something else I ran across today was someone complaining about the term social distancing and saying, why are they inventing a term for this? Why don't they just call it what it is? Stay away from people, wash your hands. Why come up with a new term that people don't understand? Have either you run into any people or talk to anyone who didn't get the whole concept of social distancing?
I haven't heard of anyone that doesn't understand the concept. And for someone that's worried about why they're creating a term, those are probably the same people that are just bored off their tails sitting at home having nothing to do, because there are so many other things we need to be worried about in this world. Then why do they create a term to call it what it is? So, I mean, I haven't heard of it, but I'm sure that people are out there complaining.
Yeah, I got you.
Same here. Is pretty much just the new norm. That everybody's coming up with a word for whatever it is they believe in right now, and whatever it is that's the latest. Looking up the Stone Mountain thing. So no, they are not closed yet. They are.
Right.
I hate to circle back on an old subject there that was a whole 30 seconds old, but they are canceling upcoming events like Talking Turkey and a couple other things. But on their site, it does have a couple of notes that effective March 22nd, Crowder's Mountain State Park, Hanging Rock State Park, Lake Waccamaw State Park, and Raven Rock State Park will be closed as of sunset. And the reason is due to declared state of emergency in various counties and continued crowding that does not adhere to social distancing guidelines. They have decided to close those particular parks.
Well, I think you also have to look at it in a lot of these parks. And when I was telling Jeff earlier, is we have a lot of campgrounds in the area around our lake, and people are utilizing them. I can understand why maybe closing some of these parks down at night. That also has something to do with probably with having to cut back on the workforce. They might not have the rangers or whoever is patrolling those areas. They want to cut down to where they don't have to have as many people patrolling at night, to where they can patrol during the day, but maybe not at night. Just cutting down on costs, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that applies to the park I've got, because they shut the gates at like 7 p.m. or something like that. So I don't know.
But did they always shut them at 7, or has it always been like that? Oh, okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay. I think you're saying that it's a new thing to close down at dark.
No. Those 3 I just read off was listed as 3 that they're closing completely, not just at sunset. They're closing them as of sunset, March 22nd. Okay. Those 3 or 4 parks in particular, Waccamaw Park and so on and so forth. The people they're too packed, like you and Jeff were just talking about. People are actually heading up there, and it's pissing them off, and so they're closing them.
Yeah, I got a problem with that personally. Because you're going to get people that they need to go somewhere. And everyone they shut down means that whatever's left open is going to be that much more crowded. If they really want the distancing, then instead of closing it, I'd like to think, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I'd like to think that people are smart enough that when they drive in, the parking lot's full, they'll be like, oh yeah, we're not getting out here. There's too many people here, and keep going. Instead of, it'll be fine, we'll just keep our distance. If there's people everywhere, are people not smart enough to think for themselves a little bit and say, no, this is too much?
I think a lot of it comes down also, which is kind of interesting to me, is that you were talking earlier, being out in the water and on the golf course, or being outdoors is probably a better place than being cooped up inside somewhere. Right. As far as passing the virus on. Yeah. So if you're going to be camping out, it's a lot of extra things that I don't agree with closing them down, because one, they're outside. Yes, there might be 6 or 7 people gathered around a campfire, but they're still outside. They're not in close quarters necessarily. But right. 2, what's going to happen when they do go camp out? They're going to have to go shop if they come from the city, they're going to have to go shop at your local grocery stores or your local shops to get the food, to get supplies that they need. So you're helping that local economy. So by shutting those parks down, in essence, they're not giving the local economy the chance to reap the benefits from people going outside and camping out.
That's the truth, and that's something really persistent that I'm hearing from all over, is how freaked out people are that their livelihood is just being put on hold. You know, how am I going to pay the bills? And that was interesting. You know, talking to TJ a while ago, it's like, what do you do? You know, when the bills come due, if you haven't been able to work, they're going to kick you out of your house. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Oh no, it'll
Because
be no. It's predatory loan 101. This is just fine. They're already establishing the base for it. It'll be just fine. What they'll do is, you know, I'm, as a small business owner myself, I'm already receiving all kinds of emails from the different banks that I bank with saying, "Oh, we'll loan you money. We'll help you get through this. Don't you worry. Super low interest, and you can skip a couple months.
yeah,
Come on
yeah,
in." Oh no, they got this. It'll be fine. Now the problem is not that. The problem is, you know, your stereotypical, we've all read the books, you know, 1984 and all the other ones. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch of the imagination. This is just finance 101. This has nothing to do with conspiracy. The larger businesses that are able to weather these types of storms, or the individuals that hopefully had enough presence of mind, you know, you quote unquote preppers or financial preppers or whatever, they're the ones who are going to come out on top of this and survive, while the other smaller businesses are absolutely destroyed.
yeah.
Your Joe's Hardware down the street gone, where Lowe's and Home Depot will still be standing just fine, because they have the ability to weather the storm financially. B, they're going to have the financial incentives as far as like Detroit style government bailouts, you know, circa Obama timelines. They're going to be fine. What you'll see is a death of a bunch of the small Americas. What's going to end up happening? I've read a couple of articles that were, you know, so paranoid as to say that the only big box retailers are going to be Amazon, Walmart, and Costco that's left after this. That's not true. However, it does illustrate the point that a lot of businesses are going to fall to the wayside on this one.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if they do. And I haven't heard this afternoon. They were supposed to maybe get it voted on this afternoon, but the multi-trillion-dollar stimulus package that President Trump did not pass.
It did not pass.
And it would be interesting to see if that would have helped any of the small businesses, but I think it was primarily going to help the large corporations.
So actually, they're doing it. They're approaching it slightly differently. So the way that they had the financial stimulus laid out for this particular iteration that the Democrats pushed down was that if you're something like I've heard two different numbers. One of them was 101,000. One of them was 151,000 a year. If you had as an end person citizen, if you had 151,000 or $101,000 worth of income per year reported, then you wasn't getting jack. And even if you did get, the further up you got, the less you were going to get, less of a stimulus check, because their reasoning was, you know, you should be better financially prepared. And they're not wrong. Then the other part of that was mainly focused on your smaller businesses, the ones that actually need the help. The big businesses like Amazon and Walmart and so on and so forth, they'll handle that, you know, automotive bailout style. They will do a completely separate law, bill, whatever, that will have all of those interests in mind. They were not stupid enough to put that in with, hey, Joe Citizen needs help. Oh, by the way, we're going to give Walmart a couple trillion too. They weren't stupid enough to do that. This bill was purely geared for small business, and what it was small business loans. So we will give you, just like they do in FEMA style situations when they're giving loans on people's homes at like a 0.5% interest, and you can pay whatever you want, $5 a month for 20 or 30 years or whatever. But by the way, you had to put your home up as collateral. They're doing it like that. And they're doing it for small businesses and individual citizens. And it did not.
That makes sense as to why the Democrats probably voted it down at that moment. They really don't seem to care about the small business.
Well, I mean, it benefits them. I mean, you got to bear in mind, several of them, I mean, you saw in the news where several of them actually dumped stock because they saw this coming, including some Republicans, including North Carolina Richard Burr. dumped millions worth of stock right before this all transpired, and they were in on some of the security advisement councils that were hearing about this stuff coming. But yeah, financially, obviously, they're banking on buying the stock into big businesses where, again, Joe's Hardware down the street doesn't sell stock on the open market. So what benefits them the most? And that's just, I'm not going to say Democrats only, that's Republicans too, because again, Richard Burr is a Republican and he's clearly benefiting from this financial
Sounds
situation.
like some insider trading possibility. SEC might be looking at that.
Oh,
just saying.
no. When the law was written, it excluded Congress and Senate because they were
Of course it did.
Yeah, of course it did, because they were too close in to the cuff on that type of information. So it was too hard for them. So the law does not include government. Shock.
Well, it sounds reasonable. No, never mind. Yeah.
If I was writing the law, it's the way I would have wrote it. I mean,
yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Shit.
Well, the same thing is they want to have gun control, but yet they want to be surrounded by armed security at all times. So, yeah, you gotta love it.
Right. It's always fun seeing someone's mouth move when the Toby.
Yeah, we're not hearing a word you're saying, Toby.
I think it's on purpose. He was pulling the ear cup off to talk to someone, I think.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. You're not on. Oh, you have video.
He's on Star Trek. He's on Star Trek now.
Yeah. Did he just say, "Can you hear me now"?
That's what I thought. His lips read, but
I think he's messing with us.
I think so too.
Yep. He's listening to everything and going, "I'm just going to act like I'm talking."
He's going through a Spotify playlist. Let's be honest.
He needs to contact someone in IT to help him with that stuff.
No, we can't hear you, Toby.
No.
You say crap.
Hear that? Well.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll see if he comes back with a fixed headset, hopefully. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll go a full hour on this. Let's see if there's enough to talk about at this point. We'll keep going. If not, we'll go ahead and shut it down here shortly. But what else are you seeing out there in general as far as how people are reacting and how things are going in your area?
You know, it's interesting. Obviously, we're a small town. We probably got 10 to 15,000 in our town, and obviously traffic is a lot lower. You know, I was out today going to the range and stuff, and not as many cars out. I think that has a lot to do with school being out, so people are staying home and all of that. But I think that the interesting is, I want to make a kind of a correlation between 9/11 in a certain sense, that we all remember the next couple of days after 9/11, how jovial and how polite we all were to everybody and helping and all that. And I see a lot of that. I had to stop by a local small grocery store, not Walmart today, to pick up some batteries. And, you know, there's a couple old people in there, and people were helping them get stuff off the shelves for them, stuff like that, helping them find stuff that may have been moved or whatever. But I would say people are being a lot more polite. There's not as many people out, but I think the ones that are out there are understanding what's going on. And so I am seeing a lot more politeness. Not that we weren't polite usually anyways, but even more now, I would say that people are just willing to lend that helping hand a lot more often.
Yeah, it hadn't really occurred to me, but I've seen similar. Yeah, it was funny. The grocery store yesterday, as my daughter and I were pushing the cart around a corner, we kind of had a little traffic snafu where, you know, we stopped and someone else stopped, and we both kind of waved at the other one to, no, you go ahead and go. And you know, as we went past, I said, you know, this is wrong. We're supposed to be, you know, running each other over to get to the last roll of toilet paper, and you know, we're being nice, you know. the news had me thinking we were supposed to be, adversarial all the time. Um,
Exactly.
had a
Yeah.
little bit of laugh over that, but it is kind of interesting to see the narrative that the broadcast media seems to want to push, that because it makes people watch, where most people seem to be pretty level-headed and doing their thing and trying to cause as little trouble as possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, once again, a lot of it comes down to maybe people are just being extra cautious. But I mean, it is nice to see, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens when this is all done. You know, we were talking about restaurants doing, to go orders or delivering, which they never done before. It's going to be interesting to see on the other side of this is these new business models that these companies and restaurants and people are having to make. What about a lot of people, these big corporations are now allowing their employees to work from home? Is this a business model that continues after this is all over, when they realize, we don't have to have this huge office building when we've survived the last few months with everyone working from home? Is that a business model? Do these restaurants say, we didn't before, but now we've actually been successful doing to-go orders or delivery? Maybe this is something we continue with. This is going to be what's interesting on the optimistic side of things, is how this has changed it, but will it change forever? Some of the business models we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it will. I think it has to. And, I've worked from home for, it's got to be about a decade at this point. So it's very interesting to me. Yeah, I have to remind myself, most people aren't used to this. And it is different and traumatic and stressful for them, where for me, it's like, the stress is that my kids are running around the house all day while I'm trying to work.
Yeah.
And my wife is home. She's a teacher. She's usually in the classroom. So that is what is tends to be on my mind the most. And I forget how stressful it is for people who are adjusting to working from home. And I guess it makes sense that they're wanting to get out when they have time even more, because they're used to that social interaction at the office during the day. And now they want to get out and be around people, which is tough when you're not supposed to actually be around people.
Yeah. Well, for me, like I said, we're usually open 7 days a week. We're closed officially 2 days a year, Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So officially we're open every other day of the year. But for the next month, we're closed Monday and Tuesday. So I slept in this morning, which was, 8:30. For me, it felt like it was 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But I slept in a little bit, didn't have to go to work. But then I sat there and said, look, I'm usually trying to find time in the late afternoon to get to the range, because I work and then I'll go out to the range around 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock. I spent a good 2 or 3 hours at the range today, and it was wonderful just to be able to go to the range at noon and not have to worry about it. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so I sent a text. I don't think you've met Bob. Bob is one of the gun writers that when we have concealed carry guns that come in, we'll put those in Bob's hands sometimes. He's a instructor that does a lot of mainly concealed carry classes. I mean, he does some personal defense, home defense type classes as well. But Bob tends to be our concealed carry specialist, and he's a range officer at one of the big ranges close to me. And I pinged him today and said, "Hey, is the range still open?" He said, "Well, yeah, they've canceled any events with over some number of people. I don't remember what it was, and but aside from that, yeah, it's still open." So that's good. I'm going to go probably Wednesday morning. Hopefully, I'm going to get out and do some shooting, and and it will be interesting to see how crowded or how empty it is.
Yeah, I'm on the board at our local shooting club, and I'm the pistol director also for the club. And I spent today at the rifle range, but I was there, like I said, for several hours, and there was about 4 or 5 people shooting at the skeet skeet bay, and I think maybe someone at the trap, but there were a couple shotgunners out there. I would say maybe 5 or 6 total. And I was, other than that, I was the only other person at the entire club. So it was
Wow.
eerie, because usually it's pretty packed on Mondays, and there was, let's say, at the most 8 of us in the entire place. So it was
Yeah.
kind of odd.
So how are your bays and things set up? Is it easy to follow those social distancing protocols at that facility, or do you have to think differently when you're there to be sure you're not too
Oh
close
no,
to people?
it's spread out. We've got let's see here. We've got one designated skeet skeet bay, but we have 3 or 4 other trap bays they can shoot skeet at also, but that one is for skeet only. But we have a total of 5 skeet and trap bays. Then we have a pistol range and a rifle range, and they're all kind of spread out. We have berms in between all of them and all of
Right.
that. So yeah, it's pretty easy if you're there, like the pistol range. I've got it's a large area. Um, so you could have 7 or 8 people there at the pistol range that don't have to be within 10 feet of each other. So it's a pretty nice. So you can still have your social distancing while still being around people, enjoying the love of firearms without having to worry about rubbing elbows, should I say?
Yeah, good. Yeah, and I'll be interested to see the range that we're planning on going to on Wednesday. I was a range member for a few years at a different range, and actually was on the waiting list for this big one for Wednesday. And by the time they got through the waiting list and called me, I had kind of moved on, wasn't interested anymore else to go. But I'll be interested to see if they're doing anything different in terms of, typically if you have guests, I'll be going as a guest. They have to go in the building and sign a paper, and are we still going to have to do that, or are they saying, we'd rather you not touch the doorknob and come in the building and pick up the pen and touch the paper, all that kind of stuff. And are there going to be any expectations that you wipe down the bay before you leave after you've shot, or is it we're out in the open, so we're trusting everything is going to be fine?
One of the, as far as putting the target stands and all of that, when we're not, I mean, they're wood target stands, they're little 2x4.
Yeah.
So we're not asking anyone to Lysol it or anything like that. Just, what it is. But I will say this, that for our guests, what we did end up doing, which I don't know why we hadn't done it before, is we put a little drop box at the clubhouse, and it's a $5 guest fee. And instead of having to go inside or sign anything at this point, we're just using the honor system. If you're a guest, drop $5 in the drop box, so that way they're not having to interact with doorknobs or all that. It's just drop $5 in that drop box and we're good to go. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it seems like with my wife being a teacher, they're moving instruction online, and a lot of things that involve paper are now being done through Google Drive, that kind of thing, where it's you do your work and you save it up to the cloud where someone else can access it instead of turning it paper.
That's what we're doing as well too. Yeah.
It seems like a good opportunity for something like that guest sign in to just, have a paper on the door with a short URL that says, go here and fill out this Google form. And then, that saves into their spreadsheet so they know who the guests were.
Yeah, I had a guy call me today or over the weekend, member at the range, and said, "Hey, I brought a guest out. He wants to turn his guest fee in," and I told him, so there was a drop box. He said, "Well, he's already left. He just gave it to me. What should I do with it?" Yeah. And I told him, well, he can either put it in the drop box for him, or next time you see any of the officers, just hand it to them and say, "Hey, this is for a guest I had over the weekend." So, and going back to what you were saying about all of that, I've got a lot of friends that are teachers. School's out till the middle of April here, and they are all kind of doing online stuff where They go to Google Drive. They put the assignment out.
Yep.
And it'll give, hey, you've got to have this in the next 48 hours of the timestamp and on all that. Obviously, they're there for questions. They can email the teacher for questions, but then that student goes in and does a Google Doc, so you can actually see that the students are actually doing it or not. So I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be a new business model for schooling or for homeschool or whatever, but like we were saying earlier, there are a lot of people, a lot of businesses doing a lot of different and innovative things they've never done before. It is going to be interesting to see at the end of this whether or not these are actually adopted for regular use now.
Yeah, I did grad school online, and I learned pretty quickly that it really, what you get out of it really depends on your drive and motivation. And, if you want to learn, it's in your hands. You have to make it happen. And if you're used to that classroom environment where the teacher kind of re-engages you and pulls you along, then it can get, you can get behind and things get out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah, I did a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess, of college on University of Phoenix. And this was back in the early 2000s when it was kind of a new concept. And for me, it was wonderful because you log in, you have your assignment, you have the end of the week to do it. That was perfect for me because I don't like to sit there and listen to someone lecture to me and all that. It's here's my assignment. Let me just do it. And I had one instructor, one of the classes that put out all the assignments, the entire, I think it's like a 5-week class schedule per class. Take one class for 5 weeks. They put all the assignments out there the first week. Well, in that very first week, I had every single assignment done and submitted. So for the next month, I was basically just hanging out, which was great for me,
Yeah. Yeah. And that type of environment, I think, gives a lot of opportunity to get out and do things that people need to kind of maintain their sanity, especially when you're penned up in the office. I think the flexible scheduling, something that my wife is already finding. She doesn't have specific hours. She's supposed to put in her 8 hours a day, but apparently they didn't say, it's the normal school hours. So as long as she's available for the appropriate number of hours and getting her lesson plans done and then grading stuff online, if we want to go for a hike in the morning, if we want to take the dog out and walk around the block, if we want to, we're looking at 3 or 4 days of rain right now, but then a few days of sun and wind, and we may get up and go to the lake and take a sailboat out in the morning. And that's one of the great things about that flexible model.
Yeah, I think that from what I'm hearing from my friends that are teachers here is they post the assignments, whatever, and they have to be available from 8 to 3:30, which would be their normal school hours.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they have to be online in that, virtual classroom. They just have to be available. So if someone does email them a question, they have to have access to that email, which everyone does on their phones now. So they could be at the mall or, hiking or sailing or just sitting around their pajamas watching a movie. And if an email comes in from a student, they have to have access to be able to help them. So, once again, it's not a bad deal if you can manage it that way.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm all about anything that gives a chance to get out and do stuff outside and not remain, a captive. All right.
Yeah. I want to say hey to Budget and to Buck Stanley out there. I can see the chat, but I'm on my phone with this chat, so I can't type, but I don't want to think that I'm ignoring them. So, hey, what's up, guys?
It is Buck, the gun-loving grandpa.
Yeah, Buck, and he lives about half an hour from me, and he actually is a member at my range, so we shoot quite a bit together.
Nice.
So good dude.
Nice. Well, yeah, welcome. Thanks for stopping in again. We'll do the normal Wednesday at 8 o'clock this week at Gear Report. Talk about the things in the review queue, that some things that have been published, some things that are coming up. like we did last week. This was more of an impromptu, let's talk about the impact of the different things going on this week. So I don't really know enough about the pending legislation to lead that discussion. If one of you guys do.
That'd be Trey. I've not actually researched the 5071 a whole lot. I can guess what's in it, but
I haven't looked at it in depth. I've looked at some other stuff, but I haven't really looked at it. I've looked at it enough to know that it's dangerous if it passes. But I like I said,
right.
I think it does pass the House. I'd be willing to bet that it won't even get out of committee in the Senate. That's just my opinion. But it could be dangerous. I mean, it's gun control at its finest if it does pass.
Yeah. All right. So let's not dig into that one since none of us have really looked into it. Again, that was put on the agenda for TJ, who must have had some technical difficulties, wasn't able to make it. Something that we can speak to that I've seen and heard about in some other geographies is FFLs being locked down. So I heard about New Jersey. I'm pretty sure, I want to say it was California as well. And I think I've heard a couple other states mentioned where they're doing that. I know Toby and I in North Carolina, FFLs haven't been put on that list of, businesses that have to be shut down. Are they still operating normally in your area, Trey?
They are operating in normal capacity right now. I will say that some of the NICS background checks are taking a little bit longer.
Right.
But the great thing about Arkansas is if you have a concealed carry permit, we are a constitutional carry state. But if you have a permit, you went ahead and I'll always have a permit because I travel quite a bit. But if you have a permit, you don't have to go through the NICS. Your concealed carry permit acts as if it's your background check. So that is something that people are looking into, getting concealed carry permits right now, because it does allow you not have to go sit there for the next half an hour sometimes for that NICS background check. So they are all open, but I think that the NICS system is bogged down right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a number today that NICS is at about 300% of what it would normally be this time of year as far as the volume of transactions that are going through.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to talk about tomorrow night on my show. Is there is a high influx of new gun owners now, and this is a wonderful thing. But it's interesting because I hear people shaming these new gun owners on what they're buying, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow night. But a lot of it comes down to our community has been waiting and been asking that question for so long of how we get more people into our community, how we get new people into firearms. And now there seemingly is a lot of new people to the firearms, and yet we're still shaming them for what they're buying. Instead of saying they're here now, let's welcome them with open arms. Let's help them and educate them on what they need to do. And maybe now they're allies. I mean, so it's interesting to me when there are so many new gun owners out there. What do we need to do? What is our stance, or what should we be doing to welcome them and help them? But yeah, I mean, 300% doesn't surprise me at all, because I know of here in my hometown of 10 or 15 people that are new gun owners. So I can only imagine what it is nationwide.
Yeah. One of the concerns that I hear, and I hadn't seen so much shaming about what people bought, but some derogatory thoughts and comments posted about, a bunch of people who have no clue about firearms whatsoever are just buying whatever they can get, and they don't know what they're doing. And that's a concern. And for me, the concern, I mean, to Toby, as a firearms instructor, how are you going to handle if someone reaches out and says, hey, I just bought a gun, or I want to buy a gun. I don't know anything about them, but your typical introduction to shooting and safety and all of that is probably going to be hard to do with social distancing rules, right? So how are you going to handle that if it happens?
So I actually have given that quite a bit of thought. So, and I was updating the website today and starting to put my events through the foreseeable future through October, November on the Facebook events page and on the mineandridgearmory.com page. So I've got two thoughts on that, and I'm not sure, this isn't in stone yet. So this is still very fluid, very wet cement, so to speak. But I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is starting probably May, because of the whole social distancing and the requirements for everybody to stay at home. I'm probably going to start offering like once a month, like a 4 or 5 hour, if you can bring me proof that you're, a new gun owner, or, in the medical field, or, law enforcement, or a teacher, or, a preacher or security at a congregation or something like that. And hey, I'm a new gun owner, maybe a COVID-19 refresher course or COVID-19 basic course or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how to word it, and just offer that for free, just to see if I can get some people to come in and just give them a very, very gun kindergarten class.
Right.
And then of course, that'll drive secondary business later down the road. So it's selfish in nature as well. I mean, it'll get people in and get them a taste for it and get them to truly, hopefully, come back and do some training. But I'm tossing up the idea of doing that, offering like one Saturday a month or one Friday evening every month or something like that. Just saying, hey man, listen, come up here, show me something, show me that you're just a noob and you're just wanting to learn, and we'll do some gun kindergarten or even pre-K, really.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I got something to add to that if you don't mind.
Yeah, go.
I don't know if you guys have gotten them, but I've received from several different online, well, they're not online, but they're gun institutions, gun schools, and all of that, different trainers and all that are going to be offering live virtual classrooms where you go to their website and they do an hour for free of live of how to dry fire at home, for the new gunners, how to properly grip it, but it's through your computer. You can sit there at home doing dry fire, but they're talking about, I thought it was a great idea. So Toby, I mean, if you want to do like a virtual classroom, do that free thing, but also maybe put on your website saying, hey, this Saturday, we're going to have a virtual classroom where you can log in on your computer at home and we'll do a live instructional series, but it's going to be, instead of in person, it'll be via the internet.
Yeah, I actually did contemplate something similar to that, not a gun kindergarten one, though that's a great idea, and teaching through dry fire and stuff. But so I was actually thinking that one through, and the logistics of thinking it through. So where would be the best to do that? Facebook, because then you can do a live and you kind of get the comments and the bidirectional interaction of people, organically asking you questions and saying, hey, hold the gun to the left, hold the gun to the right. Maybe. I mean, you
I would
the most
say
users. So
obviously not YouTube, because you can't handle firearms live in YouTube. Facebook Live,
obviously.
maybe even Instagram, because Instagram does limit you to an hour. So you'll know when the class is up, it's going to cut you off at an hour. Instagram might be good. Or if you find another embedding service like OBS, that you can just embed that on your actual website and maybe drive traffic to your website, that might be something else you could do.
Okay, so OBS or Facebook would be the two. So I'm not on Instagram. So one of the marketing courses I took, and Jeff will probably scream here on this, but one of the marketing courses I took, taught me, or for my own, the way my mind works. I'm not saying this is the answer for everybody, is to lock down your social media presence to a couple of big platforms or whatever, and get good at those and stick there. And the two that I've locked down to are LinkedIn and Facebook. So I don't get on Instagram very much, or Twitter, or any of the other ones. I'm not saying I don't have an account out there. I do. But if you go look at my Facebook activities and LinkedIn activities versus Instagram and Twitter, you'll see very clearly that I don't get out there that much. So it would have to be either Facegram. It'd have to be Facegram or the OBS. It's pushing through mineandridgearmory.com.
Yeah. Are there any restrictions on like Google Hangouts for firearms stuff?
So that's a good question. And that's another good question I would love to get, Dover and Trey's opinion on is, Hangouts is still there. There was that whole big, it's going away, but it's clearly not. It's actually literally there.
Yeah.
No, Google Hangouts is still there, and you can still do all of that. And that would be something that you can still utilize Google Hangouts. Just don't stream it to YouTube, stream it to Facebook, or
Right.
stream it to your
Gotcha.
website or somewhere other than YouTube. But yes, Google Hangouts is a phenomenal thing to utilize.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's if you're going to stream it if you're going to stream it to a different platform. I mean, if it's really just an engagement thing for people who've signed up, then you don't even have to do it someplace external. It can be private, and there you could use like a WebEx, or there are any number of things you could use.
What you could also think about doing is pre-record the actual instructional side of handling the firearm. Put that video out on Facebook, on YouTube, and your website, and everywhere else, and then do a live question and answer where you personally are not actually handling the firearm live. The people at home have watched the instructional video, and then they're on there interacting with you, asking questions that they may have from the video. That could be something you use as well.
Yeah. So, Budget mentioned if in the chat, if you go to the Budget Guns and Gear Reviews channel in the next couple days, he's working on a handgun basics. What new gun owners need to know is going to be the title of that video, or something like that. And I think that's fantastic. Toby, it sounds like it's something you could do as well, and have a whole bunch of different training out there for people. So new people, if they remain untrained, it's not going to be because there isn't a lot of free training out there to help them be safe. So I think that's a neat idea.
Agree. And if you're wanting to get, I mean, the James Yeager, the one where he offers almost the entire fighting pistol course on video. It's not kindergarten. You'd probably need to do a kindergarten or pre-K first, then go watch his 2-hour-long video or whatever it is. That actually can kind of take you next level. Then get out and practice.
Neat.
Yeah, I put out a video this afternoon about the 36-yard zero for a red dot, and I actually had.
You stole that from me. Shame on you. You beat me to it, and you stole that from me. I've been doing that for forever. Shame on you.
Oh, I've been doing it for a long time, for about a year, I should say. I've been doing it for about a year. I always did the 5,200-yard zero, but I went to that about a year ago. Yeah, but I had an email through my website from a viewer that, once again, was a new gun owner. And apparently, I'm going to go through this because this guy must have a ton of money. So he went to the gun shop this past weekend and bought an AR, which was a Daniel Defense with a Night Force optic, 2,000 rounds of 223, then bought a Wilson Combat 1911. The guy spent about $6,000 altogether at the gun shop. So I wish I was at I wish I owned that gun shop, because that was a nice sale for that guy. But anyways, he emailed me and said, I've just got my first AR and I've got this sight. What do you use to zero it in? And I said, what kind of optic do you have? And he said, it's a red dot. I said, okay. And I said, I use a 36-yard zero. And he plainly, I don't understand what the hell that is. Can you please explain? and trying to explain that in an email is very difficult. So I went out and did a video on it. But there are going to be, what you're doing, Toby, what Budget's doing, there, once again, it comes back. There is a large influx of new gun owners that just don't know. And the more that we can put information out there to help them, because what we take for granted is knowledge of what we do and how we do. We've been doing it for years. There is someone out there today that literally is the first time they've ever held a firearm and they just don't know. So the more people we can get out there to do these pre-K, the kindergarten, these instructional series for people is wonderful. So I commend you and Budget, anyone else that's doing that.
Yeah, agreed. And on top of the things we talked about, you get Gun Loving Grandpa made a comment that the CCL class got canceled locally for him this month, and that's happening all over the place. Where even if they're still allowed, I mean, I think I've heard some places are down to like groups of 10 people or less are all that can meet, and I tend to take the approach of, I really don't care what the government says. if my evaluation of the situation is, different, I may not be worried to be around 20 people or 50 people, or it may be that I'm worried to be around anyone outside of my house. So, I think that's kind of the group size limit is kind of nonsensical to me, but these classes are being canceled. So
Yeah, if I'm the instructor and I'm going to have a class, I personally am not terribly worried, about being around 10, 15, 20 people right now. That just might be me. If
Yeah.
I'm the instructor, I'm not going to, unless I am worried about it, I'm not going to cancel that class. Now, if I usually have 15 or 20 students show up for that class, but I only have 4 show up for this one, so be it. There's 4 more people that are going to get licensed to carry, which is a good thing. So if you're an instructor out there, I'm not talking to Toby. I think Toby probably did the same thing. But if you're an instructor out there and you are personally not terribly worried about having 10 to 15 people, I would suggest that they keep the CCL classes going. And if you only have 2 or 3 people show up, then so be it. But at least you've got someone out there that it's asking for help and you're giving it to them.
Yeah, and spread people out. Yeah, go ahead, Toby.
No, you're good. As of right now, I've got April 10th, Friday, April 10th, I've got a situational awareness training scheduled class. And I've got an April 11th, I've got, second Saturday of every month, we do a concealed carry class. And as of right now, I'm still full steam ahead. I'll see what the government does between now and then, because the government may end up just shutting things down to the point where people are scared to come, regardless of whether I have the class or not. But as of right now, I'm full steam ahead with situational awareness on the 10th and concealed carry on the 11th.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll be allowed to have those, and people will still want to show up. Because
if I can, I'm sure the government will give me a loan, since I'm a small business, right?
Yeah, but you might have to put your house up for it,
And my soul too, or just the house?
I thought you sold your soul a long time ago. I thought, but maybe that was Clover that did that, or Jeff. I can't remember. Someone sold their soul.
You're assuming I had one.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, good point. Well, guys, I appreciate it. We're bumping up against. We've actually gone over our hour just a bit, so I'll thank you for taking the time. I'll thank everyone live and anyone watching in replay for taking the time to listen to what we have to say, and for the folks who participated in the chat along with this. That is incredibly helpful for us. So thank you for keeping the conversation going and giving us some cool extra things to talk about. So if you guys want to say a couple words about yourself and the things you have going on, then we'll go ahead and wrap things up and get back together on Wednesday. Will be the next for Gear Report, this week at Gear Report, where we'll talk about reviews that have been published recently, things that we have on the burner, things that we're working on, and that sort of thing. Wednesday night, that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern time. So until then, I'll go ahead and check out, Jeff at Gear Report. So we'll see you back for that. Now, Trey.
Thanks for having me, guys. If you're interested, we have our YouTube channel, which is Ghost Tactical, and we do all sorts of stuff between podcasts, live shows, but we also have a playlist that we do instructional stuff for concealed carry, for just shooting for beginners. So if you are out there and you're new, go check out some of our playlists on the training series or concealed carry. We have a lot of top 5 lists out there, the best of this, that, and the other. So if you're looking to get your new firearm, or you've got your first firearm, but now you're looking to get a red dot, or, we have top 5s out there for budget ARs, concealed carry handguns, red dots, all sorts of good stuff. So if you're out there and you're new to our community, welcome. We welcome you to open arms. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, because I'm always looking to help people if I can. So thanks for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you. Toby?
Similar to what Trey was saying. So, most everything that all of my social media presence, as well as the hyperlinks to Gear-Report.com and my personal YouTube channel, and all the instructional content and instructional materials and so on, is all listed on Mining Ridge Armory That's mining, like gold mining, ridge as in the ridge of a mountain, and armory, like I don't know what armory's for, but whatever. .com. So just check us out there. And just like Trey, we have educational content. I have classes constantly that are posting up. But more importantly, and I'm saying this to anybody who's watching this in replay or anybody who's out there now listening and watching, if you are a new gun owner and you are uncomfortable with what you have just purchased, and or you're scared or concerned or whatever the case may be, do not hesitate to reach out to me directly via YouTube, Facebook, mineridgearmory.com, contact there, whatever you need to do. And if you're within driving distance of me, I will welcome you here and give you a complimentary gun kindergarten, because this is not something that needs to be taken lightly. Training is a very serious thing. Carrying a firearm, using a firearm, employing a firearm is a very, very serious thing. And it needs to be taken like that, not taken lightly.
Awesome. That's very appreciated. Yeah. And I may have to take you up on that, because I was in the Air Force. We didn't even get gun kindergarten, right? They taught us how to
didn't they give you like wooden guns, or maybe like wooden guns or something, didn't they?
But and they taught you how to fold clothes. They totally taught you how to fold clothes.
I don't know how Air Force basic training is today. When I was in, I don't even want to say when I went through basic training, but it let's say early 90s, right? And when we graduated and they gave us a certificate, I was shocked that it didn't have the Good Housekeeping seal of approval on it. Really,
the fact that you got a certificate for graduating boot camp is laughable. Just saying.
Yeah, it was a participation award. It was the predecessor to the modern participation award. Good for you.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say that the focus was incredibly different than what Ghost went through in the Marine Corps. Different jobs, different focus, but it was less like you talked about, wooden guns. Well, no, we didn't even have those. Like on on the regular for all of basic, we touched the M16s in the class. It was a half a day classroom. Like one afternoon we went in and they showed us how to take them apart and clean them and put them back together, and just the basics of operation. And then the next morning we marched across base to the firing range and had like an hour or less. Maybe it was less. I think that I shot less than 100 rounds. Period, like the whole time.
Wow.
Didn't even get to flip the giggle switch. I mean, it was all semi-auto, and it was, like 20 or 40 rounds of practice, and then maybe a similar amount to qualify, and that was it. Period. And then when I qualified as an expert with the M9 pistol and never shot around with it.
And these are the people that your left-leaning are counting on to protect them. Just saying.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's something I find funny sometimes when I go to firearms events, and sometimes a question, oh, you're a veteran? Yeah. And they assume I know what I'm doing. I'm like, dude, no, you gotta walk me through this, because, I know which end goes bang, but a lot of the tactics and when to employ and how to employ, I don't know. I need to get together with you guys who know what's going on to learn.
Yeah. Tactics versus technique. My wife and I have this conversation all the time. She's very, very good at the technique. But there are tactics that's the next level. So.
All right, maybe we can talk about that at some other point, tactics versus techniques, because we're out of time for now. So again, thank you. Oh, talk about frustrating. This has been a very low population of people on this live stream. And within the last couple of minutes, as we're sweeping the floor and wrapping things up, we get a few additional people showing up to watch. So thank you. Even if you came in late, thank you for making the time to swing by. Please.
And there's always a rewind button. Yeah, there's always a rewind button.
Yeah, please go back and watch. We rambled.
Well, you'll also know that the more of these that you do, and people, for the longest time, you didn't do live stream Gear Report. So now that people are starting to know that you're doing them, they're going to start looking for them, which is you'll start getting a lot more people just kind of organically.
Yeah. Well, and this is the second one of this format of the, podcast type format. And, we've done a few live stream reviews, which we set up and made a big push to figure out how to do that, and then found that we were having too many technical problems, getting a good solid video stream to move forward with those on a regular basis. So this is really a new thing for us, doing this type of discussion. And as long as folks out there are getting some value out of it, and it's entertaining for us, we'll continue to offer these. And the more participation we get from folks out there, the better it's going to be. The better we're going to be able to dial it in and give them what it is they're looking for. So and if Ghost is the one who does this the most. So if you like what's going on here, then raise your standards a bit and go watch Ghost some more, because he's actually good at this.
I wouldn't go that far, but I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast here. So thanks again, and hopefully both you guys can come back and the audience on Wednesday for this week at Gear Report. All right. Till then, we'll see you at the range.